I never thought I'd become the kind of man who talks more to his memories than to real people. But here I am, sitting in this half-lit living room, coffee gone cold, looking at a photo of my boy from years ago. His smile could light up a whole house back then. It still does, even from a frame that's started to fade around the edges. I used to be his hero. You know, that kind of love only a little kid can give? Pure, fierce, without question? That was us. Every scraped knee, every baseball game, every nightmare at 3 in the morning. I was there. And now, he says he wasn't expecting me for Christmas. If you're new here, please subscribe to the Comeback Path for more stories like this. Anyway, let me tell you how we got here. Back when he was little, I worked double shifts just to keep food on the table. The kind of tired that crawls deep in your bones. But every time I walked through that front door and saw him running to me, yelling, "Dad," it all disappeared. He'd grab my face with those tiny hands and say, "You smell like outside," and laugh. I didn't have the heart to tell him that outside was a mix of sweat, steel, and exhaustion. When his mom passed away, I swore I'd give him everything she couldn't. I learned how to braid his hair, pack his lunches, and fake a smile when the grief tried to swallow me whole. He was my reason for breathing. But somewhere along the way, it just happened. He grew up, I got older. We started speaking less, texting less. The world got busier, louder, and the space between our calls stretched like an old rubber band, ready to snap. Still, every month I made sure the mortgage on his new house was paid. He never asked for help, but I did it anyway, quietly, because that's what dads do. They hold the world together from behind the curtain. The last time we talked before Christmas, his voice sounded distant. Not angry, not cold, just tired, like he'd moved on from needing me. I asked if I should come over for the holidays, and he said, "Dad, I wasn't really expecting you this year." It hit me harder than I expected. The silence after that sentence felt louder than any argument we ever had. I sat there staring at my phone long after he hung up. My reflection in the black screen looked like a man who'd lost something he didn't even realize was slipping away. Christmas lights blinked outside my window, red, green, gold, mocking me with memories of better times. I thought about all those Christmas mornings when he'd jump on my bed before sunrise, the smell of pancakes, wrapping paper everywhere, his laughter filling the house. And now, years later, there wasn't even a call. Not a Merry Christmas, not a love you, Dad. Just quiet. That night, I made a decision. Not out of anger, not revenge, but clarity. I opened my laptop, logged into my bank account, and canceled the automatic payment for his mortgage. I sat there for a long time, fingers hovering over the keyboard, heart pounding like I was doing something cruel. But it wasn't cruelty. It was release. For years, I'd been paying for the roof over his head, hoping it would somehow keep us connected. But all it did was build a house where love didn't live anymore. I whispered to myself, if he doesn't expect me for Christmas, maybe it's time he learns what standing on his own really means. I clicked confirm, closed the laptop, and let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding for years. And that was the night everything changed. I didn't sleep that night. The quiet felt too loud, like every tick of the clock was accusing me of giving up. But it wasn't giving up. Not really. It was letting go. I sat by the window, watched the snow fall against the porch light, and thought about every mistake I ever made as a father. There were plenty. Times I raised my voice when I should have listened. Times I chased money instead of memories. I told myself I was building a better life for him, but I was really building walls, brick by brick, made of pride, fear, and good intentions that never landed right. Around 3 a.m., I grabbed an old notebook and started writing a letter. Not a text, not an email, something real, something you can hold and maybe smell the regret. I went for a walk down Maple Street. The cold bit at my face, the air sharp and clean. The old couple across the street were scraping ice off their car. The smell of someone's bacon drifted through the air. It was nothing special, but it felt special, because for once I was actually there, not stuck in my head, not buried in regret, just there. Halfway down the street, I saw Mrs. Porter, my neighbor, struggling with her garbage bins. She must be in her late 70s now. "Need a hand?" I called out. She looked up, surprised, then smiled. "Well, I won't say no." I helped her roll them out to the curb, and she said, "Haven't seen you out much lately, Frank. You doing okay?" I nodded. "Yeah, better than I've been in a while." She smiled knowingly. "Good. Life's too short to stay quiet." That line stuck with me all day. Life's too short to stay quiet. Maybe that's what I'd been doing all these years, staying quiet, waiting for something or someone to give me permission to live again. So I decided I'd start saying yes to things again. Small things at first. The church down the road was doing a food drive that weekend. I showed up, helped stack boxes, handed out bags. Nobody knew my story, and I didn't offer it. I just smiled, said Merry Christmas, even though it was long past, and realized how good it felt to be useful again. Then, one afternoon, a woman from the volunteer group named Claire walked over and said, "You're new around here, right?" I nodded. "Yeah, kinda." She smiled. "Well, welcome back to the land of the livin'." Something about her tone made me laugh. It wasn't flirtatious, just real, like someone who understood how it felt to come back from a long silence. We got to talking. She told me she lost her husband 5 years ago. I told her about losing my wife, about the years that followed. And just like that, the words started flowing, the ones I'd buried under routine and pride. It wasn't therapy, it wasn't confession. It was two people remembering how to talk without pretending. Weeks passed, and I found myself looking forward to those volunteer days more than anything else. We'd unpack boxes, share stories, sometimes grab coffee after. She had this calm energy about her, steady, grounded, kind, the kind that doesn't fill the silence but makes it comfortable. One evening, after closing up the donation center, she said, "You ever notice how grief changes shape?" I looked at her, curious. "What do you mean?" She said, "At first it's heavy, like carrying a stone in your chest. But after a while, it doesn't disappear. It just becomes something you carry differently. Maybe it even teaches you to walk again." That line hit me deep, because she was right. For years, I thought healing meant forgetting, moving on. But maybe healing was learning to carry it without letting it break you. That night, I drove home thinking about my son, about how maybe he was going through the same process, learning to carry the weight of what we both lost, just in his own way. And for the first time, instead of worrying, I felt proud. A few days later, my phone buzzed again. "Dad, you home this weekend?" It was him. "Yeah? Why?" He said, "Thinking of coming by. Got something I want to show you." That Saturday, he pulled up in his old truck, the same one we'd fixed up together when he was 16. He stepped out, grin wide, and said, "Got a surprise for you." We went out back, and he opened the tailgate. Inside were paint cans, brushes, a few boxes. I raised an eyebrow. "What's all this?" He said, "Thought maybe we could fix the old shed together, like old times." I laughed. "That thing's been falling apart for years." He shrugged. "Yeah, but so were we. And look how that turned out." We spent the whole weekend working side by side, scraping, painting, rebuilding. We didn't talk much, but we didn't need to. The rhythm of the hammer, the scrape of wood, the sound of him laughing. It was music. At one point, I caught him looking at me with this quiet, grateful expression. I asked him, "What?" He said, "Nothing, just, it's good to be here." And that was enough. By the end of the weekend, the shed wasn't perfect, but it stood strong again. Fresh paint, new hinges, a few old scars showing through the wood. Kind of like us. That night, as he packed up to leave, he said, "Dad, I've been thinking of selling the house." I looked at him, surprised. "Yours?" "Yeah, I want to start fresh, somewhere quiet, maybe build something new from the ground up." I smiled. "Sounds like a good plan." He nodded. "I just didn't want you to think I was running away." I put a hand on his shoulder. "You're not running. You're growing. There's a difference." Before he left, he said, "I'm proud of you, Dad." And I just froze for a second, because I couldn't remember the last time I'd heard that from anyone. "Thanks, son," I said softly. "Means more than you know." After he drove off, I went back inside and looked at that old photo of the three of us, me, him, and his mom. We looked so young, so hopeful. And for the first time, I didn't feel sadness looking at it. I felt gratitude. Because life hadn't gone the way I planned. But maybe, just maybe, it had gone the way it needed to. That night, I texted Claire. "Coffee tomorrow?" She replied, "Always." I smiled, set my phone down, turned off the light. And as I drifted off, I thought about second chances. How they don't come wrapped in miracles or fireworks. They come quietly, in the shape of a knock on the door, a shared cup of coffee, a hand that steadies you when you're learning to stand again. And I realized maybe the best revenge life can offer is peace. The kind that doesn't shout or prove anything. It just lives quietly inside you. Finally at home.